On this Wednesday night, an Ottawa cabinet shuffle signals the government's view of tough battles ahead. 5 new ministers and 5 new portfolios. Cue the music for a bruising year. As the Prime Minister eyes an election campaign, provincial relations and international trade. At Issue looks at the moves and imagines the opposition's line of attack.
Also tonight, in a major interview, the U.S. president seems to correct himself again. Donald Trump talks about Vladimir Putin, Russian meddling, and who's responsible. But as always, it wasn't that straightforward. This is The National.
The next federal election and this country's vast border with the United States, those were 2 of Prime Minister Trudeau's priorities when he shuffled his cabinet today, but they weren't his only targets. 6 veteran ministers have new portfolios and 5 new cabinet ministers have been added. There is still a near equal gender split, 17 women, 17 men, plus the Prime Minister. There are also 3 brand new portfolios, seniors, intergovernmental affairs, and border security. All of this tells us a lot about the government's priorities heading into an election year. Katie Simpson has a closer look.
It's a beautiful day, no?
From the first arrivals at Rideau Hall, it became clear the Prime Minister's cabinet was getting a significant shakeup as the Liberals prepare for the battle that will be the 2019 federal election.
William Sterling Blair, Minister of Border Security and Organized Crime Reduction.
Former Toronto police chief and point man on legal pot, Bill Blair is taking on one of the most political challenges as the minister now responsible for border crossers. The appointment suggests the Liberals see this as a possible campaign issue.
The very first conversation I had with Bill Blair, he said the number one enemy of public security is fear. And when Conservatives across the country are playing the fear card, we need strong, reassuring voices to counter that.
The opposition is frustrated with this pick, given Blair's history with Ontario's new Premier, Doug Ford.
While it looks good on paper, is going to be fraught with difficulties, especially when it comes to dealing in Toronto and Ontario.
We have the most political police chief I've ever seen.
Blair and the entire Ford family openly clashed during Rob Ford's mayoral crack scandal. But any tensions will be an issue for another cabinet member to manage.
Minister of Intergovernmental and Northern Affairs.
Dominic LeBlanc is now in charge of federal-provincial relations, responsible for keeping Ottawa's agenda on track and managing any pushback from the premiers.
We have a clear agenda that we laid out before Canadians 3 years ago, and we look forward to working constructively with Premier Ford, with other premiers, in order to implement that agenda.
Not all of the moves are as divisive. Hamilton MP Philomena Tassi is heading up a new seniors ministry and is looking to boost support for the Liberals in southern Ontario. And Jim Carr is now the Minister of International Trade Diversification. He'll be looking to secure new markets for Canadian goods while the Canada-US relationship remains strained.
I look forward to showing that Canada, the Canadian brand, Canadian values are of interest to people around the world and on every continent.
Border security, provincial relations, and trade tensions are all problems that could hurt the Liberal government's re-election chances if not managed properly. With the campaign just over a year away, these ministers will be under added pressure. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, let's get some more analysis on the cabinet shuffle. And we do have a special summer appearance of our At Issue panel. Joining us from Ottawa, senior writer for Maclean's, Paul Wells, and HuffPost Canada's Ottawa bureau chief, Althea Raj, is here in Toronto. Paul, let's start with you. What do you think today signals to us about what the Liberals are planning for the next election?
This is more of a combat cabinet than it was yesterday. Obviously, most of the ministers don't change places. This is not a completely new situation, but this is Justin Trudeau admitting to himself that hope and hard work and sunny ways have their limits, and that at some point your opponents are just going to oppose you, and you're going to find yourself in a fight, especially on climate change and carbon taxes and on the handling of these irregular border crossers. And so he's put people in position on both of those files, Bill Blair and Dominic LeBlanc principally, who are not afraid of a fight.
And Althea, you're nodding?
Yeah, basically, I think it's a realization that the next year is going to be a lot harder than the first years. We had liberal-friendly governments, in fact, mostly liberals, except for Rachel Notley in Alberta and Saskatchewan, obviously not, but who were on board with the Prime Minister's agenda. And now we're facing Doug Ford in Ontario, possibly François Legault in Quebec with the Quebec election and the CAQ, maybe Jason Kenney in the spring when the Albertans go to the polls. So the big fight is probably going to be not across the aisle with Andrew Scheer, but with provincial premiers. And so he is beefing up that point with Dominic LeBlanc. Dominic LeBlanc is like elbows out type of guy. He's pretty partisan. He's a savvy political actor, but he's also really charming. So he's actually like the perfect person to put in this position. Also, basically, pre-election planning in terms of, you know, the check marks on the diversity folders and regionally. So Mary Ng in Markham, a nod to the Chinese community, typically tends to vote Conservative. Philomena Tassi in Hamilton, the Liberals are hoping to pick up some seats there. She's Italian, also plays well with a certain community. And good communicators. So Minister Sohi, who was in infrastructure, goes to natural resources. And instead we have Minister Champagne, who is a very good communicator, who's going to be out there announcing money, hoping to get money out the door. So these are, I think, a realization that maybe they didn't have the strongest people in the right roles.
So a combat cabinet, as Paul says. Althea, what about the other side of the battle line? How's the opposition going to react to this shuffle?
Well, we heard Lisa Raitt, the deputy leader of the Conservatives, today had a press conference, and she said this is basically a desperate reset. I'm not sure that you can really say that, frankly, about the shuffle that we saw today. Most of the cabinet ministers, including people who were heavily criticized, like Catherine McKenna in Environment, even Patty Haydu over the whole attestation issue, they have kept their portfolios. The only person who was really visibly demoted was Mélanie Joly, the Heritage Minister, for basically putting her foot in her mouth on numerous fronts in Quebec. So I don't think it's a reset. I think the Liberal government, frankly, did not want to give the opposition ammunition on that front and kept people that maybe were not necessarily the best performers in those roles because they didn't want to fuel that narrative.
A lot of attention today on two of the ministers in particular, Bill Blair, and we talked about Dominic LeBlanc here, but beyond that, Paul, who do you have your eye on?
This strange musical chairs arrangement where Sohi, who was the infrastructure minister, is now natural resources. Carr, who was the natural resources minister, is now the trade minister. And Champagne, who was the trade minister, is now infrastructure minister. It's like everyone at a dinner table moving one seat to the left. It may make a bit more sense than it sounds. Champagne is a guy who loves to talk and loves to glad hand, and as Althea said, he might make a bit better salesman on the infrastructure front. So he is Albertan and maybe better on trying to get those pipelines built. And Carr might be able to sell Canada abroad better than Champagne was able to. But it's odd, this sort of musical chairs game.
And Althea, you talked about a lot of cabinet ministers a moment ago, but final thought on the shuffle?
I think the big question mark is what Dominic LeBlanc will actually be able to accomplish. Bill Blair has been like the person that made legalizing marijuana the least interesting file ever. So I think they're really trying to diffuse the whole situation with the asylum seekers. And Amarjeet Sohi and Natural Resources, I think everything will go well if the pipeline gets built. But if it doesn't, I'm not sure he's the best guy to fix the problem.
Well, we'll know how we did tonight as soon as Rosemary tweets out her reaction. Thanks to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Here's what else we're working on tonight on The National. The other big shuffle a lot of Canadians were talking about today, the Toronto Raptors trading away their biggest star, DeMar DeRozan.
Plus, the world's been waiting, and today we heard directly from those young Thai soccer players and their coach about their ordeal, their rescue, and what's next for them. But first, U.S. President Donald Trump tries to clear the air again after his meeting with the Russian president earlier this week. But parts of the picture are just as hazy as ever. Recall what Trump said, speaking to reporters after his meeting with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. He appeared to accept Putin's denial that Russia meddled in the 2016 U.S. election, running completely against what his own intelligence experts were telling him.
I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be.
And so for the last 2 days now, President Trump's been walking back from that stunning statement, trying to explain his failure to hold Putin accountable. Now, Ellen Morrow joins us now from Washington. So, Ellen, what is the president saying today?
Well, as you said, Andrew, this is the second time in as many days that we've heard President Trump trying to walk back, to clean up that statement from Helsinki. Yesterday, Trump said he simply misspoke. And this evening, he's taking it even further by saying, in the clearest way we've heard from him yet, that he blames Vladimir Putin for election meddling. Here's what Trump had to say.
Do you hold him personally responsible?
Well, I would, because he's in charge of the country, just like I consider myself to be responsible for things that happen in this country. So certainly, as the leader of a country, you would have to hold him responsible, yes.
But he denies it. So if you believe U.S. intelligence agencies, is Putin lying to you?
I don't want to get into whether or not he's lying. I can only say that I do have confidence in our intelligence agencies.
Now, a couple of things to point out. Trump does not say flat out that he blames the Russian president, period, full stop. Instead, he uses that more general language that Putin is responsible for what happens in Russia in the same way that Trump is responsible here in the U.S. It's also, of course, noteworthy that Trump refused to say whether or not he thinks Putin is lying when he denied the meddling accusations. Now, Trump backers and some Republican lawmakers may be satisfied with this, Andrew, but it's extremely unlikely the president's critics will be.
And even though Trump was seemingly trying to continue his walk back, we also did hear him say he thinks, and this is perhaps unsurprising, that the news conference went well.
That's right. And remember, we've had 2 days of the president trying to distance himself from what he said, saying he didn't mean to say it. Then in this interview tonight, he also went back to a favorite theme of his, blaming what he calls the fake news. Here's what he said.
I will tell you, I don't know what the fuss is all about. I think we did extremely well, and I think the press makes up the fuss. Look, it's fake news.
But the press covered the substance and the wording of that press conference accurately.
I don't care what they covered. They didn't cover my meeting. The important thing, frankly, was the meeting that lasted for 2.5 hours, or almost 2.5 hours.
Now, the problem with that is that the media was not informed until later what was even discussed in that meeting, and the details are still quite scant. And it raises a question. If the U.S. president thinks the news conference went so well, why has he been trying to walk it back ever since? There does seem to be a disconnect here. Does the president actually believe what he's saying today or what he said on Monday, since he says that was a great news conference, Andrew?
Ellen Morrow in Washington. Thanks very much. Meanwhile, we are learning more tonight about the case that federal prosecutors are building against a 29-year-old Russian national. They believe she cozied up to American officials in order to infiltrate the U.S. political system. Maria Butina came to Washington as a graduate student, but the FBI says that was little more than a cover for her work with the Russian government. As a covert agent, prosecutors say she gained access to some of the top members of the NRA and other conservative groups.
This is an all-Russian public organization. We promote gun rights.
A prosecutor telling a judge that Butina even allegedly offered to exchange sex for political access, all the while communicating with Russian intelligence. But still, her attorney argued she wasn't a spy.
She's not an agent of the Russian government, the Russian Federation. She's innocent of the charges brought against her.
The judge ordered Butina to remain in jail until her next hearing next week. Okay, let's turn now to the case of former nurse Elizabeth Wetlaufer and her killing spree. The spotlight now is on the Ontario coroner who looked into the deaths of 2 of her victims and at the time, Ian, didn't find anything suspicious.
And now Andrew insists he did nothing wrong. He testified at the inquiry into Wetlaufer's crimes today. Wetlaufer confessed to murdering 8 Ontario nursing home residents between 2007 and 2016 and trying to kill 6 more. She is now serving 8 life terms behind bars. The CBC's John Lancaster was at the inquiry.
Doctor, is there anything you'd like to add from your testimony today, sir?
Dr. William George declined to answer questions outside the inquiry. Inside, he was peppered about what he did do, or more specifically, what he didn't do.
Do you think that you missed anything that you ought to have discovered when doing this death investigation?
No.
George was adamant there was no need to dig deeper into the death of James Silcox, a resident of this long-term care home who died suddenly back in 2007.
Did it occur to you that it could be intentional harm?
There was nothing to suggest that.
Former nurse Elizabeth Wetlaufer has since admitted to killing Silcox with a lethal injection of insulin. Yet George determined the death was the result of complications from a fall, and no autopsy would be needed.
It appears that Dr. George had a predisposition to thinking that healthcare practitioners could never harm the residents that they take care of.
By 2014, 6 more of Wetlaufer's patients had died suddenly at the same facility. Maureen Pickering was one of them. Her blood sugar levels crashed unexpectedly. Her death was deemed worth looking into by a doctor who had tried to save her. The inquiry heard that about 90 minutes after being told that Pickering had died, George determined it wasn't a case for the coroner and that no autopsy would be needed.
Do you think you should have investigated this death?
No,
Why not?
because the death was foreseeable and expected.
Susan Fraser calls the doctor's testimony astonishing.
Astonishing in terms of the lack of reflection about his role in this and his findings, which have proven to be wrong.
The inquiry is expected to hear from another key witness in the coming days. A representative of the College of Nurses of Ontario will be asked to explain why the college didn't suspend Wetlaufer's license back in 2014. That's when the care home Wetlaufer worked for fired her, claiming she'd become a danger to her patients. John Lancaster, CBC News, St. Thomas, Ontario.
And some other developing stories we are watching tonight, starting with another sign of the growing toll of Canada's opioid crisis. Public health officials say they plan to start factoring overdoses into this country's average life expectancies. It's something the U.S. has been doing for years, and they've seen their life expectancies drop as a result. In Canada, last year, nearly 4,000 people died from apparent opioid overdoses. Well, a move south of the border could lead to new tariffs on a key Canadian export. Today, the Trump administration said it's launching an investigation into whether imports of uranium are a threat to national security. Now, he didn't mention Canadian uranium specifically, but you'll recall this notion of national security being compromised came up just before the U.S. imposed tariffs on aluminum and steel. And Canada is also a big player on the world uranium market, the second largest producer on the planet. It's used for nuclear power and nuclear weapons.
It is not too late to save Brexit. We have time in these negotiations. We must try now, because we will not get another chance to get it right.
That's Boris Johnson delivering his resignation speech today in British Parliament. He quit as Foreign Secretary last week in protest over Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit plan. Today, Johnson said if the government didn't change its strategy for leaving the EU, Britain would be left in a, quote, miserable permanent limbo. And still ahead tonight on The National, police in Ontario are treating the brutal beating of a father in front of his family as a hate crime. His wife speaks with CBC News.
Plus, the rescue of the teenage boys from that cave in Thailand has many thinking of the Chilean miners, also rescued after being trapped underground. We'll hear from someone who's chronicled their lives since their escape. And Toronto Raptors fans are distraught over the departure of all-star DeMar DeRozan.
I'm sad to see him go. As a person.
DeMar over everything. Show me that.
It sucks. It's terrible. But if you're a Messiah, you gotta do what you gotta do, right?
The border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland is invisible, but people here know exactly where it is. Essentially, it's where I'm standing right now, and if you look over here, it actually runs along the middle of that river. People remember what the border used to look like. There used to be a customs office just off the road here to my right, and an army checkpoint just up the highway. The worry with Brexit is that along this point, which is the only point where the United Kingdom sits right next to an EU country, that when Brexit happens, there has to be a physical hard border here. That would mean a controlled border that has a customs office and a checkpoint again. There hasn't been a physical border here since the so-called Troubles, and the concern is that it might fly in the face of a peace agreement that was signed here 20 years ago to end the violence and also to open up these borders. As you can see, there is opposition to the idea of a physical border, and one of the major concerns here is economic. Anyone with a job or business or land that straddles the border says the only option is an open border.
There's a lot of people would not be happy with borders going back up. This place, this area would have been very much like a war zone 30 years ago, and we don't want to go back to that again, where people are in conflict on the island of Ireland have to go through British checkpoints. We definitely don't want to be. Everybody's in a good place now, and I think it's best to leave it that way.
So a year before the official date that Britain is set to leave the European Union, the two sides have not yet agreed on how this is going to work. So this free-flowing border has become the main sticking point. Nal Ayed, CBC News on the United Kingdom, Ireland border.
A vicious beating near Toronto is now being treated as a hate crime. The victim, a father of two, fighting for his life in hospital. His wife spoke exclusively to CBC News about the horrific attack over the weekend. Chris Glover brings us that story.
Deanna Attar can only pray for her husband's recovery after he was brutally beaten Sunday.
I say, please don't touch him, please don't hurt my husband. I have two beautiful little girls, don't hurt my husband.
You only need to look at this photo of Muhammad Abu Marzouk to see how brutal the beating was. A piece of his skull had to be removed so surgeons could deal with a brain hemorrhage. Attar says it happened as their family was leaving a picnic in a park. She says two enraged men confronted her husband in the parking lot with their 4- and 6-year-old daughters watching in horror.
I can't believe these things happen for us because we are Arab.
I heard them screaming, effing this, effing that, terrorist this, terrorist that.
Fuat Yusel says he heard racial slurs during the relentless attack. He got hit as he tried to break it up.
I've lived in this country for 39 years. I've never faced this.
Two brothers are now charged with aggravated assault. Initially, police thought it was a road rage incident, but now they're treating it as a hate crime. The imam at Abu Marzouk's mosque questions why police appeared to stall on labeling it a hate crime.
As a society, we have to start recognizing the fact that exists right now and that hate is alive.
Today, the local chief of police released a statement to say her officers are trained to recognize and investigate hate-motivated crime, and they take these incidents very seriously. Meantime, while the image of Muhammad Abu Marzouk in a coma is seared into the minds of so many today,
I don't know why these things happen for us.
it's the image of her husband being beaten that's keeping Deanna Attar up at night. An online fundraiser has now been started for the family. He was the sole breadwinner, and his recovery, given his intense injuries, is expected to take several months. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
According to the latest numbers from StatsCan, there were more than 1,400 hate-motivated incidents in 2016, a slight increase over the year before. Of those, 80% were motivated by race or religion. Ahead tonight on The National, there were happy tears today at an airport in Africa when a flight from Ethiopia to Eritrea landed for the first time in 20 years.
Plus, Radiohead returns to the stage in Toronto this week, where they'll confront a deadly tragedy head-on.
It's an incredibly loaded show for us to come back and play, and it's something that we've not felt able to do for, well, until now.
Your body is designed to heal itself. All you have to do is follow simple practices.
The internet is an eternal spring of information, overflowing with tips on how to live a long and healthy life.
The resulting oil is an effective cure or control for practically any disease known to man.
Even celebrities such as Gwyneth Paltrow and her lifestyle brand Goop have advice on living better.
To eat like Gwyneth, you have no gluten, dairy, corn, soy, caffeine, alcohol, added sugar, red meat, shellfish, and white rice.
But the offer of hope, of a cure, can be cruelly seductive. As with the rest of the internet, anything can be posted. It doesn't have to be true. So how big is the problem of fake news in the world of health? Dr. Brian Goldman is the host of the CBC radio program, White Coat, Black Art. So let's talk about fake news on the internet. It made me think that the old snake oil salesman who would just stay one step of accountability moving from town to town now can live on the internet with impunity.
Yeah, forever. And that's because the internet has no strong sense of accountability. There isn't any television commission that's saying you can't put this on you can't put this out there. And what's interesting is that surveys have shown that 93% of patients trust their doctor, but 60% trust the internet.
There can be people who say, look, who's to decide what's fake? Some of the stuff is, like we saw the guy, this could cure anything. Okay, I can identify that as fake. But then there's the stuff over here where people say, well, just because I believe it doesn't mean it's fake if you don't believe it.
So lots of good questions. Fake news is defined as a so-called news story that is very casual with the facts. And the more unfactual it is, the more it's fake. One of the ways that can happen is through removing the context for the news items. So for instance, there might be a little bit of evidence to show that a particular kind of stem cell treatment, there's a lot of fake news about stem cells, that there's some preliminary research showing that a stem cell treatment may offer hope to people who've had a stroke or people who are blind because of macular degeneration. And that, so there may be a grain of truth, but after that, the fake news artists just run with it and turn it into a total cure. And then if they may go to the famous trope of saying that this is the treatment that pharma doesn't want you to know about. So they kind of have the specter of a conspiracy theory, and that is also catnip to people who love watching health news stories.
We know how worked up people get over fake news in the world of politics. How emotionally responsive are people to the discussion of fake news in the world of health?
They are very emotionally responsive, but it's different than fake news in general, fake political news, because that's about your political views. Fake health news is about your health or your loved one's health, and there is nothing about which we have a greater personal stake than our health, than our welfare or that of a loved one. If you've got a mother or father who has Alzheimer's disease, you're going to fall prey. You're going to be at risk of falling prey to the latest stem cell story. Here's the cure, the potential cure for Alzheimer's.
It's not so simple as, cut out butter or add butter, it'll make you taller or something. I mean, these are things with real consequences.
Absolutely. And stem cell treatments, there were a number of people who went to a stem cell clinic or a clinic that was offering stem cell treatments in Florida to receive an experimental stem cell treatment for blindness, and they became blind.
Radiohead returns to Toronto this week for 2 sold-out shows, but their time there will bring back painful memories. The last time they played in Toronto, one of their crew members was crushed to death when a stage collapsed. And 6 years later, there are still questions about why and how it happened. But tonight, in a CBC News exclusive, Katie Nicholson has uncovered some new answers.
Hours before its first big Canadian show, a completely different spectacle. Working in concert to bring the stage from the ground up. Yeah, it's rock and roll, but it's also safety first. A concept never far from their minds, especially now.
It's going to be a very charged couple of days for us in Toronto, for everybody. As a band, we're very aware of the of what it will cost the crew, being there emotionally. It's got to be very much part of those shows. We want to celebrate his life as well, and our best way of doing that is through music.
Radiohead likes to pride itself on its life-changing shows. But it was that show that never happened that's had the most profound effect on their lives. 4 p.m., June 16th, 2012, just before soundcheck. Several tons of twisted metal, lights, and video screens came crashing down and instantly killed drum technician Scott Johnson.
Have this giant screen, it's got lots of projections that come onto it.
For Radiohead drummer Philip Selway, Johnson's death weighs heavily. He was supposed to be sitting where Johnson was the moment the stage collapsed.
It's 6 years now, 6 years without answers. It's 6 years carrying that sense of wanting to do the best thing for Scott and for Scott's parents, and actually not being able to do that.
Initially, the Ministry of Labour investigated the collapse. 13 charges were laid against Live Nation, Optic Staging, and the engineer. But they were all stayed, all because the case took too long to move through the courts. So no one has been held accountable. But under the Freedom of Information Act, we've obtained an incident report prepared by the Ministry of Labour that sheds some light on what the province's engineers think went wrong that day. It turns out there was a lot. The report lists numerous design and construction issues. The overall weight of the suspended roof grid system was miscalculated. Devices used to weigh stage components were insufficient, and the construction didn't follow the design.
Those deviations cost Scott's life. And so, yes, that makes me angry. And until that's actually acknowledged in a wider sense, then that's going to happen again. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know, you know, there's always a margin of error in any working practice, isn't there? But that's a lot of errors to have, and that can't and shouldn't happen again.
I think we should leave the loose. Yeah, it's loose. Is this okay? No, actually,
So this is a testing facility for pressing.
At the University of Toronto, Doug Perovic uses the Downsview collapse to teach students about forensic engineering.
Stability of a large structure.
We showed him the report.
Well, this structure failed in a certain area where the truss component that held the roof up was overloaded. Simple as that.
Who should have caught that?
Well, that should have been caught firstly by the design engineer, who's responsible for making sure there are no discrepancies or significant deviations from the design drawings. And then secondly, the constructor who's building this, I mean, they also have a duty to make sure that what they're constructing is according to design drawings, and if it's not, that needs to be carefully vetted and approved, and nothing left to chance.
But a lot depends on what specifically an engineer is hired to look at in a project. In an email, Dominic Coulieri's lawyers say he was retained just to review specific components of the stage, not to review the other original components of the optic stage. They went on to say the pickup trusses installed by Optic Staging at Downsview were not designed or approved by Mr. Coulieri, and Mr. Coulieri was not informed by Optic Staging that they were not using the original pickup trusses designed for the optic stage. It's not the first fatal collapse Coulieri's been associated with. A cold November day in 2000, a scaffold hanging off the side of the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor gave way as workers were moving the platform.
Is he still in? As far as I know.
28-year-old Jamie Barker plunged into the river and drowned. Coulieri was one of 2 engineers charged under the Occupational Health and Safety Act for allegedly giving negligent or incompetent advice. Those charges were withdrawn, and Professional Engineers of Ontario also cleared him of any allegations of misconduct. The PEO is still investigating Couliari's role in the Downsview stage collapse, while the profession waits for answers.
Is PEO doing a good enough job keeping the public safe in this instance?
I don't think so. I don't think a good enough job has been done on many sides. It's actually embarrassing for this province that tragedy like this sort of went this many years without a lesson that's yet to be learned.
But Radiohead has learned a lesson or two.
That's the whole point.
Adrian Bullock is the band's money man. Ever since the collapse, the band has dug deep to provide an extra layer of safety.
We have our own structural engineer who will check all the drawings and all the engineering piece of paper for a second opinion. We did a tour of South America a couple of months ago, so we took additional engineers with us actually on the tour to do it. I mean, it makes it an additional expense, and it's more hassle, but that you cannot put a price on safety.
The band is more cautious and also still angry. Radiohead is doing this tour without Live Nation, the world's largest live music company.
We've not done any shows in North America with them, not as a boycott per se, but we've said we can't work with you until this is resolved.
Things may never be resolved for Philip Selway. Every time he steps onto a stage, he's reminded of Scott Johnson.
As a band and as a crew, we put our trust in that machine to make sure that everything is set up in a way that we can work to our best, that the safety of all of us, of our crew and ourselves, that is paramount. Judging from what's coming out of that report, that just hasn't been honoured, that hasn't been respected, and you feel very let down about that. Let down isn't even, that doesn't cover it. So a death has come out of this. Scott has died because of this. And those kind of mistakes, they feel inexcusable.
An inquest was called in December, and while Radiohead may have finally set a date for Toronto, the coroner has yet to set a date for the inquest, which means the wait for answers continues. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Montreal.
And lots more to come tonight on the program. Toronto Raptors fans were hit with a bombshell today.
Yeah, I'm very sad to see DeMar go. DeMar's part of the reason why I even got interested in basketball, just watching him.
After firing their coach, the franchise has traded away its best player, replacing him with another all-star. But will it finally secure NBA success? That story's ahead on The National.
Because of his size, and particularly in this league, which is a really rough league, and I tell you are you scared for him at all?
No, Wayne has. If you watch him closely, there are very few times that he'll really get hammered. He seems to have eyes in the back of his head at times, but instead of forcing against the check, Wayne has the knack of rolling with the check, and he never gets hurt badly in that respect.
You're not scared?
No.
What he's found and what we found, that they're checking him a lot closer, and they're going to continue to check him. But I think he has enough brains, enough moxie to overcome all the checkers on him.
The number of goals he's getting and the number of points he's getting must surprise even you. I mean, it's impossible for a 16-year-old to do that in junior A.
That's something that we've never expected or dreamed of. We thought play September, come Christmas, that he would help our hockey club. Here he came to our training camp, we dropped the puck. From day one, he's helped our club and continued to score and score.
How much do you think, Wayne, when you're operating a play?
Well, when I'm out there, I try to think as far ahead as I can. You know, even before the play develops, try to think where the puck's gonna go and where to be. You know, and when I go in on a goal, I think about everything else but scoring. You know, I just go in there and. Like the other night in Ottawa, I was going to do something, I was thinking of it anyway, and all of a sudden, everything just went blank, and all of a sudden I looked up and the goalie was right there, and I just had to go around him. I was fortunate enough to score.
Is that instinct, you think, or what is it?
Part of it's instinct, you know, but a lot of it takes a lot of practice. Not in the older age, but when you're younger, 4, 5, 6, even 10, 11, you know. And I worked on it then real hard, and it's been paying off for me.
What do you want for him? You want him to be the next Bobby Orr?
Well, I don't think he could be a Bobby Orr, but whatever Wayne wants. And like I said earlier, as long as we can get his schooling out of hockey, I think both his mother and myself have, you know, accomplished everything that all the time has gone into with him.
Right now, I want to play 2 solid years of junior A hockey and get my grade 12 or at least 13. And if I stay in junior hockey, go farther in school. But
university?
Yes, I'll be going to 10 university for sure. But
even if you turn pro?
I don't know. That's too far ahead. I know that I'm going to grade 13, and after that, I'll make up my mind what I'm going to do.
Still 4 years away too, so anything could happen in 4 years. And we had always hoped that as long as we got Wayne his schooling through hockey, we've pretty well accomplished everything that we wanted to do in respect to Wayne and hockey.
I don't know what's going to happen, though. I just hope that I make pro hockey.
DeRozan, another three. Got it! Long gets it back to DeMar. DeMar, left hand.
Woo! Get into passing lanes with everybody else.
DeRozan, the throw. Yeah. Good.
Sort of cruel to show those pictures on the day Raptors fans are saying goodbye to DeMar DeRozan. In a blockbuster trade, Canada's only NBA team is losing its best player. He's headed to San Antonio in exchange for the Spurs' top player, Kawhi Leonard. The trade is a reminder of the business of sport, how a player with a deep connection to this city and a desire to stay here can suddenly be shipped out by a team that's under pressure to do better. Devin Heroux has more on the trade, the reaction, and DeRozan's impact on a place he thought was home.
A minute to go in the first quarter. DeRozan punching it home.
Has to get it in. He does to DeRozan. The Euro. DeMar DeRozan.
What a move behind the back, and he finishes.
Night after night, season after season, DeMar DeRozan brought Raptors fans to their feet.
The Toronto Raptors select DeMar DeRozan.
The kid from Compton, the tough part of Los Angeles, quickly became a fan favorite on and off the court. From hospitals to classrooms, important for him to be part of the community.
Y'all the real superstars. You know, I'm just a fan of y'all.
Hold your books up high, high, high.
Especially this literacy program that DeRozan sought out to be part of.
He is somebody who I think really got to love this city in a way, and in part through programs like ours that really made a difference in the community.
When he signed his new contract 2 years ago, DeRozan made it clear he wanted his entire career to be with the Raptors.
You know, my whole mindset, it's always been Toronto since I've been here. You know, my whole goal when I first got here was to make this whole city and this whole country be known.
But that goal came to a screeching halt Wednesday morning. DeRozan seemingly blindsided by it all, writing on Instagram, "Ain't no loyalty in this game."
Crushed. I've talked to people who've known him today, and he's devastated by it because he really wanted to spend a 20-year career playing in Toronto.
Doug Smith has covered the Raptors since their inception.
This is a day that takes the best team ever and changes it exponentially. And so I think there's a huge gamble.
DeRozan 4-3.
And leaves a fan base searching for answers.
Very sad to see DeMar go. DeMar's part of the reason why I even got interested in basketball, just watching him. knowing that there's a player that decided to stay in Toronto because nobody really stays in Toronto.
We've had about the same roster for the last how many years, and not much has changed. So, I mean, they're just, stirring the pot a little. I think it's good.
First, they fired their award-winning coach, and now they've traded away their franchise player. Raptors president Masai Ujiri has not been afraid to make changes after playoff disappointment, but this, trading away a player so deeply loved in this city, will sting for a while. Devin Haru, CBC News, Toronto.
So just what has DeMar DeRozan meant to the Raptors on the court? Well, take a look at his franchise records. During 9 seasons, he scored almost 13,300 points. He holds the record for most points in a single game, 52 against Milwaukee this January. And DeRozan has also played more games than any other player in Raptors history, 675. And who is Leonard? Well, on the one hand, he's thought to be among the best players in the world when he's healthy. But his health is why some analysts are saying the Raptors are taking the biggest gamble in their history. And then there are questions about where he really wants to play. Leonard has spent 8 seasons with San Antonio. In 2014, he helped them win the NBA championship and was voted MVP of the finals. But a leg injury limited him to just 9 games last season, leading to reports of a rift with management about his rehab.
We wish him well, but at this point, it's time to move on.
Leonard is due to become a free agent next summer, and despite claiming in this interview he was a one-team player...
Would you like to finish your career as a Spur?
Yeah, for sure.
There is speculation he has his sights set on a move to Los Angeles, leaving Raptors fans to wonder why their team would want him now.
If you go and get a name like Kawhi Leonard, maybe it's the right trade, maybe it's the wrong trade. I don't even care if he stays. You're going to show your fan base that you're making the correct moves.
His talent certainly explains why the Raptors would want Leonard.
And we are keeping tabs on a number of other developing stories tonight, including plans for more events at the next Winter Olympics. Today, the IOC announced 7 new medal events for the 2022 Games in Beijing. Among them, women's monobob, which is one-person bobsleigh. Also added big air freestyle skiing for men and women, as well as mixed team events in short track, speed skating, ski jump, ski aerials, and snowboard cross. We do have some new details tonight about just how deadly this month's heat wave has been in Quebec. Health authorities now believe 53 deaths in Montreal are linked to the heat. And right across the province, 89 deaths that officials think are heat-related. Well, theirs is a story that has gripped the world, and much about the extraordinary rescue of 12 boys and their soccer coach from a flooded cave in Thailand is well known. But today, they filled in some of the details by speaking in public for the first time since their ordeal. Briar Stewart has the story.
In brand new soccer uniforms given to them by the Thai king, the team took part in a carefully managed news conference. All the questions pre-selected to avoid causing the boys any more stress. The coach said they decided to check out the cave after practice. There was a little flooding, but nothing too alarming, particularly because despite previous reports, the boys did know how to swim. But after an hour inside, they realized they couldn't get out. 25-year-old Ekapol Chantawong went to see if he could find a route out and even tried digging for a while. Then he returned and told the boys to settle in for the night. I told them to say some prayers. We were not scared at the time because I was thinking that, okay, tomorrow the water levels should decrease and someone will try to find us. But as the days passed, they became more desperate. They drank water that dripped from the cave but didn't have any food with them. I tried not to think about the food because it would make me even hungrier, said the youngest player. They debated if they should go further into the cave to look for another way out, but in the end they decided to stay put on that ledge, where the British divers eventually found them.
How many of you? 13. Brilliant.
I did not know what to say to him. I said hello, and then he said hello back. It was a miracle.
The coach said they decided that those who lived the furthest away should be rescued first because they assumed they would all be going home instead of the hospital where they all ended up. As cameras waited, they were discharged from there on Wednesday, and the boys were able to spend their first night back with their families. The entire soccer team will now spend time as novice monks as a way to honor the diver who died during the rescue. While some still dream of playing soccer professionally, at least one of them says he now wants to be a Navy SEAL. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
So as you saw, it seems like a happy ending. The boys all smiles as they left the hospital. But ask anyone who's seen or lived through this kind of ordeal before, and they all seem to say the story's not over yet. Just think about that group of miners in Chile who survived something very similar. There were 33 of them trapped several years ago, 700 meters underground. They went more than 2 weeks before they were even discovered. And the attempt to rescue them also drew help and attention from around the world. When they came out, 69 days after the original cave-in, bright lights and cameras were waiting for them. And that's when things got complicated. So let's speak with the man who literally wrote the book about what these men went through. Jonathan Franklin joining us right now. He's the author of 33 Men Inside the Miraculous Survival and Dramatic Rescue of the Chilean Miners. And John, can you maybe start by painting a picture of the circus of attention that they received immediately after they were rescued? I mean, there were news organizations, but it went beyond that, right?
What happened is they became like instant celebrities. The miners didn't know the world was watching. There were some 2,000 reporters, and there was movie deals, movie producers. They were getting people dressed up as doctors trying to interview them in their hospital rooms. It was just a complete media circus. One of the miners said it was everything but the lions.
And how did that affect the group? Because I'm thinking in the vein of their recovery, I mean, their attempts to rebuild their lives.
Well, originally they had this pact that they were going to stay silent, they were not going to speak, they were going to be unified as a group. And that literally lasted about 2 or 3 hours. Some miners were more famous, got deals, other ones were ignored, some were better at speaking on TV. The whole group dynamics was fractured instantly, and all sorts of jealousies and envy erupted as the media attention kind of blew apart any sense of group dynamics.
And you know, I wonder about what impact that would have had on their recovery. So I think in terms of these 12 young soccer players in Thailand, what are the thoughts running through your mind as you think back to how this relates to those 33 Chilean miners?
Well, I always thought the Chilean miners were these disposable heroes. The whole world watched, and then weeks later they were back to selling fruit on the street. They got terrible mental health counseling. So I think it's important to remember that even though they're smiling and they're physically okay, there's all sorts of things that have changed. They're not the same people they were before. People are going to look at them differently. People are going to treat them differently. It's not just about being resilient and getting over it. You have to acknowledge that you're not the same person. One of the miners said to me when he came up, he said he looked in the mirror and he saw his eyes. He said, "Those are not my eyes anymore."
Jonathan Franklin, lots to think about. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And the moment is next, but first, a preview of a CBC short doc that you can watch right here on The National this Friday. We'll introduce you to 5 guys who say when they walk down the street, they get stares, whispers, laughs. Strangers even snap pictures of them, all because of their dogs.
You see Squirt? What's that?
They're not real dogs. They're not real dogs. Anything smaller than like a lab is not a real dog.
Well, give him a kiss. Be nice. Kiss. Kiss.
He must be a sweet guy versus a big biker type guy.
It was love at first bite. I said bite, right?
When I see a large man walking a small dog, I feel usually it's because he has to take care of it for his girlfriend.
Normally, I think it's somebody that's looking to pick up women.
I assume it's not his. It's probably his girlfriend's. I mean, why would a larger man have a small dog?
You see a big tough guy with a little poodle or something like that, people start to think of these big guys as tough and whatnot, but sometimes they just want to roll around with a cute little puppy or whatever.
I came here to start a new life. I came here to own my own business.
This is Neil Sulkers. His ambitions are one casualty of Canadian Tire's mess in Texas. He's one of 44 disappointed dealers.
and we put signs on the door saying closed indefinitely.
19 of those dealers are so angry they've banded together to sue Canadian Tire for $400 million. The pending lawsuit prevents these men from talking to us. After 3 disastrous years, Canadian Tire's American adventure has already cost the company over $300 million. It's cost the dealers, half of them Canadian, their hopes for a successful business. Every day, thousands of Canadians shop at Canadian Tire for everything from spark plugs to coffee pots. The company's a retailing star. By the early 80s, it was running out of room to expand. So its president, Dean Muncaster, looked to the U.S. for the right opportunity. He found it in the land of country music and cowboys, Texas. Texas was booming, and Canadian Tire found a chain of 81 stores called White's, going for a song. The stores were run down and losing money, but Muncaster was confident that a couple of years of that Canadian Tire magic would turn them around.
These stores are Canadian Tire twins, right down to the fixtures. Canadian Tire figured that what worked so well in Canada could work in Texas too. To get the Texans in the door, they decided to slash prices and undercut the local competition.
Under the franchise system, White's head office handled wholesaling, distribution, and advertising. Independent dealers bought the stores and ran them. In all, 22 Canadians came down to buy a franchise. Frank Doe was one of them. He'd spent 15 years with Canadian Tire, and this was his big chance for a dealership of his own. But it didn't turn out the way he planned. Frank Doe and other dealers started wondering if head office knew what it was doing. Doe showed us store locations in Houston that just didn't make sense.
This is Houston. This is where our stores are. Take a look, all those homes back in there, that's our customers.
Some of the stores were in such poor neighborhoods that Doe couldn't believe Canadian Tire had kept them.
The people won't drive to these areas. We have to draw from the people who are in the areas now, and there's no money around here.
Granted, these were the worst locations, but even the best stores were in trouble.
Put a bird on it. White link. White link. Yeah! Time of my life!
This was the scene today at Asmara International Airport. For the first time in 20 years, a flight from Ethiopia landed in neighboring Eritrea, all part of a push for peace by Ethiopia's new prime minister. The two countries fought a civil war between 1998 and 2000, but it wasn't until just last month that there was an official peace. Today's historic flight is our moment of the day.
Because of the fight between Ethiopia and Eritrea, we had no even address to communicate with our family.
A cheer erupted as the flight touched down in Asmara. For many, this was more than a historic moment. It was a chance to finally reconnect with their families.
I have come here to look for my grand family.
2 90-minute flights flew people across the border. They were greeted by revelers, waving flags full of smiles and clapping. Similar excitement was expressed when the phone lines opened between the two countries. We spoke to a woman in Ethiopia who called a random number in Eritrea.
The receptionist answered and I said, congratulations, I'm calling from Ethiopia. It was important for me because these two countries were one before the referendum and I still believe that we are one. I don't know how to express it, but I'm feeling very happy.
Just think about that, Andrew, in a moment, in a moment in time when we can connect through FaceTime or Skype to, pretty well anybody we want to, that the simple act of making a phone call, a random phone call to someone from one country to another would bring her such joy.
Well, and it's funny to think, as you mentioned, it's a relatively short flight too, right? From airport to airport, it's about the width of Saskatchewan, I think. But beyond connecting those two countries directly, it's also interesting to think that it opens up the airspace for Ethiopian Airlines. So, it could have an impact on flights because they won't have to take these sort of circuitous routes to get to certain parts of the Middle East from Ethiopia that they did in the past. So it's a story with all kinds of interesting consequences. That's The National for this July 18th. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.
Good night.